안녕하세요, 여러분. 저는 jetbrains 한국 총판의 단군 소프트 김우성이라고 합니다. 오늘 웨비나 시리즈 중 그 첫 번째 에피소드인 jetbrains rider와 유니티로 게임 제작하기 세션의 호스트로서 사회를 맡게 되었습니다. 사실 jetbrains 아이디들은 JVM 쪽 계열에서는 이미 오래전부터 여러분이 사용해 주셨는데 애용해 주시고 했는데 라이더를 포함한 이제 닷넷 개발에서도 작년부터 엄청난 좀 성장세를 보이면서 여러분들이 이렇게 사랑해 주신 덕분에 이런 자리를 마련하게 되었습니다. 라이더는 이제 오래전부터 게임 엔진인 유니티 그리고 언리얼과 강력한 어떤 연동성을 통해서 스크립트를 다루는 개발자나 이제 엔지니어분들의 입소문을 많이 타기도 했는데 심지어 이제 유니티 CEO가 극찬도 하였고 또 한국 유니티 에반젤리스트 분들도 혀를 내두르면서 라이더를 극찬한 어떤 콘텐츠들도 많이 있더라고요. 오늘은 이제 앞서 말씀드린 이제 라이더와 유니티로 게임 제작하기 세션만 준비되어 있지만 시리즈 웨비나로서 화면에 보시듯이 두 번째 에피소드는 라이더와 언리얼 관련 웨비나를 준비하였고 마지막으로는 라이더 플로우로 손쉽게 씬을 디자인하고 관리할 수 있는 그런 기능들에 대해서 알아볼 예정입니다. 각각 이제 다른 요일에 하고 있으니까요. 화면을 통해서 언제 하는지 확인 부탁드리겠습니다. 이 모든 에피소드는 발표자인 jetbrains 디벨로퍼 어드보켓인 맷 앨리스 님이 해 주실 거고 영국 분이시기 때문에 영어로 이제 녹화해 주신 세션을 저희가 한글 자막을 잘 입혀 가지고 실시간 스트리밍 드린 이후에 이제 세션이 끝나면 Q&A를 진행할 예정입니다. Q&A 이제 질문들은 유튜브 채팅창에 이제 남겨주시면은 세션에 대해서 이제 스트리밍 이후에 Q&A 시간에 모아 가지고 맷 님이 직접 답변 드릴 예정이고요. 이건 라이브로 답변 드릴 예정입니다. 그리고 제가 중간에 통역 지원을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 실시간으로 이제 접속해 주신 분들에 한하여 신청할 수 있는 선물들을 좀 준비해 봤습니다. 바로 3 개월 라이더 라이센스인데요. 3 개월 이제 사용권은 화면에 보시는 QR 코드 찍어 가지고 jetbrains 코리아 카카오 플러스 친구 채팅창에 이름과 이메일을 남겨 주시면은 저희가 별도로 이메일로 발송 드리도록 하겠습니다. 실시간 참가자들을 대상으로 하고 있기 때문에 오늘 오후 10 시까지 꼭 접수해 주셔야 되고요. 25% 할인 기존 고객들은 이미 "내가 사용하고 있는데 내가 구독자인데 어떻게 하냐?"라고 했을 때는 저희가 25% 할인 쿠폰으로 보내드릴 예정이니까요. 실시간으로 접속해 주신 만큼 저희 선물 꼭 받아가실 수 있도록 jetbrains 카카오 플러스 친구 꼭 들어와서 이름과 이메일 남겨주시면 되겠습니다. 또한 그뿐만 아니라 이제 또 퀴즈 이벤트가 준비되어 있습니다. 이 퀴즈 이벤트에는 라이더 1 년권이 걸려 있는데요. 저희가 이제 세션 그 녹화된 거 스트리밍 끝나고 Q&A 하기 전에 하나, 그리고 Q&A 끝나고 하나 이렇게 진행하고자 합니다. 선착순으로 이제 이루어지는 퀴즈고요. 총 2 분이 이제 그 상품을 받아가실 수 있게 되는 거죠. 이 모든 세션은 또 이제 녹화가 되고 있고 유튜브 jetbrains TV 채널에 공개될 예정이므로 언제든지 다시 보실 수 있는 점 참고 부탁드리겠습니다. 그렇지만 채널 이제 고정해 주셔야 이 이벤트 혜택들 다 받으실 수 있고 마지막 퀴즈까지 혜택 받으실 수 있으니까 채널 고정 꼭 부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼 여기까지 서두가 좀 길었는데 본격적인 세션 스트리밍 시작 전에 발표자 맷 앨리스 님을 한번 만나보도록 하겠습니다. Hello, Matt.
Hi, folks. How's everyone doing today?
Hopefully everyone's good. Myself, I'm good. It's been a long time since we did the webinar in Korea for Korean audience. I think it was back in 2021.
That is
Do
a
you
long
remember?
time back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was about Code with Me, and it was great then. How have you been since then? Everything good?
Oh, everything's fine, thank you. Yes, doing lots of stuff, very busy, and looking forward to today's webinar as well, today's session. I hope people
네.
can get some great tips out of today's video.
네, 이제 맨님은 한국 그 청중분들을 위해서 2021년도에 아마 코드 위드 미 웨비나 때 한번 선보이고 그 이후로는 사실 처음인데요. 그동안 아주 바쁘게 지냈다고 하시네요. 네. 그리고 오늘 세션 많이 기대해 달라고도 하셨습니다. Before we start the video, what do you expect from our audience to get in return today? Like, if you have just one thing or two to kind of emphasize.
Hopefully that Rider is a great development environment for game development and Unity. Hopefully they'll find a couple of good tips that they don't know already. And most importantly, Shift and Alt Enter, the two keyboard shortcuts that are really, really important.
네, 사전에 이제 시작하기 전에 꼭 얻어갔으면 하는 게 어떤 거냐라고 제가 질문을 해봤는데요. 아마 모르고 있던 여러 가지 팁들을 다 이제 지금 얘기해 주실 세션이기 때문에 딱히 하나 찍기가 사실 쉽지는 않겠지만, Shift, 되게 단순한 이제 단축키지만 Search Everywhere 단축키가 되겠고요. Alt Enter, 이런 것들 자주 사용하시면 좋을 것 같다고 하셨습니다. So, shall we start, Matt?
Yeah, let's get going.
네, 그럼 바로 Matt님의 세션 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 진행해 주세요.
Hello everyone, thank you all for joining. My name is Matt and I'm a developer advocate at JetBrains, and today I'm going to talk to you about using JetBrains Rider as your script editor in Unity and all the good things that it can do to help you with your project and help you work really well with your scripts and understand what your code is doing. Getting started is very easy. You just need to be using Unity. I've got a sample project already open here. If we open our preferences for external tools, you'll see that Unity has already recognized that we've got Rider installed. I can just select it from the drop-down, and then when I double-click a file, it will automatically be opened in Rider. Before we have a look at Rider, I just want to quickly show one thing there. If we go to the package manager, the support for Rider is built into later versions of Unity with the Rider package. It's always worth having a check to see if there's a newer version there and keeping that up to date to make sure you get the best experience. Okay, double-click a file, it opens in Rider, and this is what we've got for Rider. We've got the file and the source code shown very nicely in the editor there, and on the left-hand side we've got our project view. You can see here we've got a Unity window on the left here, and this is showing all of the files and folders that I've got in my project. And this is very nice because it's not showing you the solution files you've got there, but it's showing you a view very similar to the project view in Unity itself. So we can see all of our assets, and we can expand any of these folders and see what files are available in there, animations and so on. And I can also see my scripts and use that then to just very quickly navigate around and open up my C# files. But we can also view all of our packages as well. So Rider understands that Unity applications and projects have got lots of packages, and we show you where all of the read-only reference packages are. So for example, we can see there's the JetBrains Rider package itself being referenced, and you can open that up and have a look around in there as well, and you can work with the C# files that are part of those packages. Any packages that you have which are editable will be shown here as well. So I've got a copy of the Unity Collections package, and we could edit that, we could work with that, and Unity will compile that and use that for us. Let's jump back into the whole script editor as a whole. So there are two keyboard shortcuts that I want to teach you today. This is the most important thing for getting started and for using Rider. So let me just close these windows down for a second. If I close everything down, the two main keyboard shortcuts are Shift to open up Search Everywhere, and Alt Enter, which I'll show a bit more shortly. But Shift is our search tool, and this gets you anywhere in your project. You can start typing, say, for menu, and it'll get me anything with menu in there. It'll search for classes, for files, for symbols. It will even search for actions across the IDE as well. So if I very quickly want to go to this tower defense main menu, I can just type menu, or I can do it even quicker. I just use TDMM, tower defense main menu. Very easy way of navigating around and getting to the code that you want. It will take me to the class or to the symbol. For example, I can go and find projectile, and there's ballistic projectile that I'm looking for, and it'll take me to there. I could go and look for start speed, which is a field being used in a ballistic projectile. I can also see that it's being used in linear projectile, and I can very quickly navigate there. So it's a great way of navigating around your code. If you know where you want to go, type in the name and Rider will take you there. The other useful thing you can do here is search for actions in the code. So if I want to turn word wrapping on, for example, I can do that. I can use the Actions tab here, and then I can click word wrap on, and I can do it just with a simple hit of Enter, and it will do it directly without even closing the dialog for you. So you can update and work with that dialog very quickly. So the other item that we want to look at, the other keyboard shortcut, is Alt-Enter. Now, you're going to see sometimes across the code that Rider is looking at your code and scanning it and trying to find issues that'll help you, and it will save time for you and find problems before they become a problem in your build. And so, for example, here we've got ballistic projectile. We've got an inspection where Rider is telling us that this class has some virtual members but no inheritors. We don't need those virtual members, so we can use Alt-Enter to show our menu, which can fix things. And this Alt-Enter menu can do a lot of great things. It can fix up, do quick fixes to change this. So, for example, I can make this file sealed, and that will remove those virtual methods for me. And in fact, if we go to the version control menu, I can show a diff there to see exactly what's happened, and we can see that the class has been made sealed. These fields have been made private, and some virtual methods there have been removed. If I decide I don't want those, I can very quickly right-click there and roll back, and we're back to how we were before. So Alt-Enter is a very useful tool which can do a lot of things. It can also do things where there aren't any highlights. So, for example, I'm on the public keyword here. If I use Alt-Enter there, I can very quickly change public to internal, or change it back to public. It's a great way of very quickly updating your code. Other really useful things we've got here, in fact, let's just get over to the name of the class. If you look at the bottom of the bottom of the menu here, we've got a few different items. We've got things like navigate to, refactor this, inspect, and generate. These are entry points to pretty much all of the functionality of Rider. If you can use this from Alt-Enter, you'll be able to get to nearly everything that you can do. So, for example, if we select refactor this, we get another menu of all the different refactorings we can do with our code. Refactorings where we can change the code to have it do the same thing, but in a different way. So, for example, here, I can safely rename the code. So instead of just going through and doing find and replace on ballistic projectile, I can very quickly change its name, and Rider will do all of that work for me, and it'll update everything. We can see that Unity in the background has recognized that and is recompiling and rebuilding. So I can do Alt-Enter, use my refactoring items there, and do a whole load of different things like safe delete as well. So if I want to just check whether I can actually delete something, is it being used somewhere else in code, we can run the safe delete, see if it's being used, and only delete it if nobody else is using it. Other items down the bottom which are really useful is the navigate to menu, and you can see these entry points have keyboard shortcuts right there as well, so you can jump straight there. But we can use the navigate to menu to show different items. We can go to the declaration, we're already there, but that would be useful if I was here, for example. I can go navigate to declaration, and that takes me straight to the item. If we go to navigate to, I can go to up and down the class hierarchy. I can go and see base symbols or derived symbols here. So I can see that, let's go to my base symbols, and I get an option here. I can go to mono behavior. And if I navigate to that, Rider will decompile the code for me, and it will show me mono behavior as well, even though it's a Unity specific class. Go back to navigate to base symbols. Or I can go to this iProjectile, and I can go and see the definition of this interface. And if I navigate here, I can very quickly jump to the code, and I can do a similar thing here with navigate to derive symbols, and I get to see everybody who is implementing the interface there as well. So I can see my ballistic projectile, the renamed ballistic projectile, And I can see my other projectiles as well, linear, homing projectile, and wobbling projectile as well. Nobody wants a wobbling projectile. So we can do lots of nice things. We can navigate around and we can work with things. Another one which was useful there is the generate code. So if I'm in a mono behavior, for example, and I open this menu, there's a lot of things I can do, such as creating equality members or overriding members for virtual classes. But down at the bottom here, we've got this Unity event functions. And if I select that, we get a nice list of all the Unity event functions that I can add to this class. So if I just select a bunch of those, then you can see very quickly they get added into my class here. And if I look at the tooltip for that there, we get to a little description there as well. We can see reset to default values, and I can click the external documentation link, which is just opened on a different window. If I bring that there, and we can see that the external documentation will open up the installed documentation that I've got alongside this Unity installation there. So it's a great way of finding out the information about the different classes that you've got available to you from Unity. Let's just undo that. So click on that and roll back the changes. So again, version control helping me out here. And of course, I don't have to use that dialog there. I can just start typing as well, and Rider will recognize that I'm trying to create one of my event functions, and it will auto-complete that for me. Now, the other really useful thing that you can do with Alt-Enter is all of these inspections. And you can see now I've got this reset class function. And in fact, let's just create an awake function. Oops. I think I've already got awake. I've already got awake defined in here. So let's say I've just created an awake function, and you can see that now Rider has grayed this out, so that we're not getting the normal sort of syntax highlighting here. And if I hover over that, it's because Rider isn't telling me that this is a redundant event function. This event function is going to get called by Unity, but it doesn't do anything, and so it's actually a performance issue. And so Rider's telling us that there's something we can do there. If I do Alt-Enter, I can quickly remove that event function, and we've kind of helping make our code a bit better. Let me just put that back in so that I don't cause trouble. It's particularly useful for things like update, because update will be called so many times per second, once every frame. And if you are making these calls and doing nothing, then that's just, you're paying a performance price there for something that you don't need to do. We've got a lot of other, Rider has thousands of C# specific inspections. We can find things like how to modernize your code, how to make your code use more up-to-date C# features. We can also show you when your code is not using normal naming standards, and it give you Alt-Enter fixes there to make those better. But we've got a lot of Unity-specific features, and that's what I want to show you today. The things that Rider can do to really help you work with your Unity code, and how Rider will suggest best practices for you, and it will also suggest things like sort of performance-related items there as well. So if we just navigate to, in fact, let's just go to my inspections folder here. I've got a few examples. We've got some nice simple examples there of where Rider recognizes the use of Unity color. And so we've got highlighting there of color red. If I just show that we're using, this is the color type defined in Unity Engine. And it's showing there we've got red, green, blue, they're highlighted. If I do Alt-Enter there, I can pick a color from a palette and I can edit those, and we'll update the code directly in the place. If I drag the color chooser, where is it? Oh, no. Let's try that again. So if I bring up if I grab the color chooser, doesn't want to work for some reason. Well, we can usually use that to go off. There we go. Now it's working. Go off and choose a particular color under the chooser, and it will then update the code based on that. So that's a great way of being able to sort of point at your game, at some assets there, choose a color, and very quickly get that into your code. So there are a couple of different things that we can do that Rider will help you reduce the amount of time that that you spend having to swap between Unity and Rider. So, for example, we've got some features when if you create a mono behavior, for example, here, if you're using new to create a mono behavior, that's perfectly valid C# and it will compile and it'll work fine. But when you go at runtime, Unity will then tell you that you can't use new on a mono behavior because Unity itself has to manage this. But we can tell you that inside the editor as well. So we can give you an inspection here to say that mono behavior instances must be instantiated with add component instead of new. And we can do Alt Enter and very quickly fix those up and allow you to choose which game object it is that's going to add the component. Similar sort of thing with scriptable objects there. So this is about saving you time when you switch to Unity. So we can find problems before you have to switch over there. Other interesting things we can do is things like invalid method signatures. So if you're using various attributes like did reload scripts, then we can show you that actually it needs to be a static method, and we can quickly fix those up. Similar problems with, let's see, do load here is also missing static method there, and Alt Enter, we can quickly fix those. If I have, I'm in a mono behavior there, so if I have one of my methods on application focus, and for example, if I have that empty without the method signature there, we'll show you that that's incorrect, and then Alt Enter can again change the parameters to fix that back up again. So we do a lot of work there to understand how Unity is using your code and to fix those before it would be a problem at runtime. Similar issues with some of the magic strings. Unity does a lot of magic strings there. So if you've got inputs, values or tags or layers and scenes, these are all handled as strings, which you won't know until runtime. But Rider can look at this information from your Unity project and give you information such as code completion. So if you're using input, you can use the getAccess method there. Rider will give you a whole set of code completion methods, which you can then use to update your code. And if there's something there which isn't defined, then we will highlight it as a warning and tell you that it's likely to fail when you get to runtime. A similar thing then with compare tag. Excuse me. The tag is not defined in tags and layers, and again that will return false and won't be useful. But we've got actual tags there, and we can show those as in a code completion list. Similar thing for if you're just comparing it against the tag method as well. So it isn't just about the compare tag function, but if you're comparing it against the tag property, then we recognize that's a tag and show you those values. Similar thing with layers and scenes there as well. Great way of providing the information in the editor without having to swap to Unity to find these errors and to get into runtime. Very similar thing is things like redundant attributes there. So for example, you can see here that we've got some serialized field attributes that are redundant. This is very, very useful because it'll show you when something is not being serialized when you think it might be. So we've got a method, we've got a string, we have a field here that is being, has got the serialized field and also the non-serialized attribute there. This means that it won't get serialized, and we've got a redundant attribute. And we can use Alt Enter again to clean that up. A really helpful one is when you put serialized field on a property. You forget that it's all about fields, and it's not going to work with a property there. And again, we can very quickly Alt Enter, remove it, but we'll gray it out and we'll show you that this is not going to work as you might think it does. Another useful feature we can do, though, is if we've got a redundant attributes here, we can actually say, well, remove all of them within the file, and it cleans up a whole bunch of things straight away. So we know that there's a whole bunch of problems there, and we can fix them. And it's not just in the file, we can do it across the folder, the project, or the whole solution as well. We can fix your code. Other related inspections that we've got is sort of to do with best practices. So if we can have a look at some of those, let's just go to something like set float here. This is all about the best practices that Unity suggests you use while you're writing your code. And again, it's about trying to bring that advice, not just from the web pages and the documentation of Unity, but into the editor. So for example, here we've got the setFloat method. This is taking in a string value test, but what this method does is, the very first thing it does is it converts the string value test into an ID and uses that ID as the lookup. Instead of doing that every single time you call it, we can use this, we can create a cached property called test. If I just jump to that, and that will do it once and save the value, and then use that ID instead of the string value. Again, we've already seen the problem with updates. We can Alt-Enter and very quickly delete that method, and we're good. But similar things then with using a tag. If we compare a string literal against a tag, this is going to allocate, and so this is going to be expensive, especially if you're doing it in an update loop there. It's actually much better to use the compare tag method, and so we can Alt-Enter and quickly fix that. And again, this is something that we can run across the whole project or in the whole solution even, and fix everywhere where this is a problem. We can do slightly more interesting things as well here. So for example, when we're instantiating an object, Unity will very firstly create it at a default location in the hierarchy. But then if you change the parent, Unity has to do a lot more work then to give it a different location in the hierarchy. And that can be expensive. And it's a whole lot easier if you combine everything together. And we can find this information, we can find this pattern here and suggest a quick fix. And you can very quickly fix that. And in fact, you can, again, run it across the whole project. So you can apply these best practices very easily and very quickly. Similar sort of thing with string literals in a component. So instead of using a string literal there, you can actually use a type. And you get a typed response back. It's a quicker lookup, and it's a much better way of working. Let's just jump over to a slightly different feature here. So far, we've been looking at sort of warnings and inspections here. This is a slightly different thing. This is not showing you that there is something wrong with your code, but it's giving you some information, some extra context. The idea here is that we know the update method is called very, very frequently. And so you want to be careful about the amount of work you do in the update method, and you need to be careful about avoiding APIs, method calls that Unity knows are expensive. So for example, it's not a good idea to call getComponent inside an update method. And Rider can tell you this. Rider can give you this information. So for example, here we've got an update method as part of a mono behavior, and we can see it's being marked as an event function. And I'll come back to these in a minute. But here it's being marked as an event function, and it's got the little hot icon there as well to say that it's being called very, very frequently. And inside this method, we will then recognize various expensive methods. So we know that getComponent is expensive. So you probably don't want to call that in update. This isn't a warning. This is just giving you the information now to say that there's an expensive method here. What we can do in Alt-Enter is introduce a field and initialize it in start or awake. And so that will, that will then create a method, a new field. And if we go and find usages, we can see that in start, we've now got that getComponent call. So again, it's not about finding errors or warnings in your code, it's about giving you that information there. We can do this in other parts of the code as well. So we know that update calls reset enemy. And so if we control click and navigate to reset energy, we can see that this is being marked as frequently called as well because it's being called from update. And in here, there's a getComponent call. So we know that you want to probably avoid calling getComponent here. And so you can then investigate further. But if we go back to where we were using reset enemy, we now realize that reset enemy is doing something expensive and give you that information. So this is a very rich set of information that Rider gives you that can be used then to decide whether you need to profile further and find out if you've got an actual performance issue, or whether this is absolutely fine, whether you're just calling getComponent once and it's not going to hurt your code at all. So it's up to you then to look into it a bit further. Okay, so that's the main bits of the inspections. Actually, no, there's one last thing I want to show you with inspections. Let's go to this one. This is a good example of this. So this inspection is looking at mono behavior and comparing it against null. If you compare a mono behavior against null, this is not just checking to see whether the C# object is initialized or not. It's also looking to see if the underlying Unity game object has been destroyed. And this is quite complicated, and it is something that can be easily missed, especially when we're using more of the new C# features, such as the null coalescing operator here. So this is looking to see whether MB is null, and if it is, if it's not, create a new instance of the mono behavior. But this has got an inspection here because using this operator actually avoids doing the check to see if the underlying game object is still alive. This is all quite, as I say, it's all quite complicated, which is why it's really useful to be able to do Alt-Enter, go into the inspection options menu, and down at the bottom here, we've got why is Rider suggesting this? And this menu item will open an explanation page. Let's bring the thing there, which explains all of the information around this. And it explains why you're seeing the inspection and also how you can fix it, how you can make the code better. The Unity inspections have this documentation for pretty much all of the inspections, and it's a very useful way of working, of finding out and understanding why we're suggesting this. So we're not just, Rider isn't just telling you to do something so you must do it. There's a reason for it, and these documents will explain why. Okay, so that's enough on inspections. Let's go and have a look at, let's go back to my ballistic projectile. And I was going to mention what these links at the tops are. You can see here we've got, you can see the version control information there. I can also see where my code is being used in code. So for example here, if I just go back to my navigate to, I can go to find usages. This will show me everywhere that this code is being used in the project. And you can see I've got my results here. It's being used as a type argument in this ballistic launcher. And you can see the code in a preview there on the right-hand side. But what we also do, which is a lot more fun and interesting for Unity projects, is that we index your project, your scenes, your prefabs, your assets, and we get to show you where this code is being used inside your Unity projects. So here we've got my usages in code, but next to it we've got these 3 asset usages. And if I click that, we can see now that this class is being used, this mono behavior is being used inside these 3 projectiles. And if I click that, we can jump straight over to Unity, which will quickly recompile because I've been changing code. But you can see now we've got this usages window, and it's showing us, let me just reload that. Let me click. And if I go back to there, we've got this usages window, which is showing us then that it's being used inside these prefabs here. And I can double click that, and you can see it's being highlighted in the project window there. So this is a very smart way of working with your scripts, where we can see that Rider understands where your scripts are being used inside your Unity code, and we can then join those things up. So instead of having Unity and Rider, we can sort of bring those together and show where your scripts are being used. And if we look at these serialized fields as well, we can see here that this arc preference has got the value use low. We've got a fire mode being set to use launch speed, and a firing angle here being set to 15. So we can actually see where your serialized data is being used and what the value is. So I can see that my firing angle is always 15 in all the assets that this is being used in. But if we look at start speed, we can see it's being changed in 3 assets. So if I click that, I can see I've got 3 different values in the different projectiles. So if I select this particular prefab, then again, we'll see where it's being used. And we can see, projectile 2. And if I pull the inspector open a bit, in fact, let's let's click that. Let's dock that window. So let me grab that down to there. So yeah, so if I select my projectile 2 there, and if we scroll down here, we should be able to see now my start speed there is 20. And if I change that now to be 50 and save the project, if I get back here, we should then very quickly see that Rider has picked that up as being set to 50. And so it's a great way of bringing that serialized data into your editor and seeing where it's being used. Okay, so other useful things that we do to help you with your code is that's the file I want, is working with assembly definition files. So assembly definition files are a great way of splitting up your project into different assemblies, to make them quicker to compile, so that if only the changes within that assembly will be compiled. But there's a number of interesting things happening in the code itself. So if you've got references, for example, they might be stored as GUID to assets, which are very tricky there, but we can very quickly show it. We can show it in the editor there to show that we're referencing here post-processing in Unity collections. And we can also control-click and navigate to that. We can see now we're in the post-processing assembly definition there on the left. Or I can go to my Unity collections one, and I can see that this is we've got other assemblies that are being included there as well. And in fact, so we can keep on going. In fact, what we can also do is here we can go to navigate to and find usages, and we can see everywhere that Unity collections is being used. So if I just close these down a bit, we can see it's being used in Unity collections tests, test play mode, as part of the burst compatibility gen, and then as part of my my class there as well. If we just go back to the inspections assembly definition, then if you're using version defines here, we can show you now when we've got, if you're trying to check with a version of Unity, we'll show you what the current version of Unity is so that you understand whether that expression is going to be true or not. Same with packages there. I want to say that I want to have Rider, which is at least 1.0, and we've got 3.0.14 installed. If I change that to 10, we can now see that symbol has grayed out, and it's saying that this symbol isn't defined because we've got an unmet version constraint there. So it's a great way of telling you quite what's going on with your assembly definition files without, again, you having to swap to Unity. All right, so that's sort of working with your scripts. When you want to actually work with your code, you generally want to do some debugging as well. And so we've got all that information set up here. We've got automatically recognized that we've got a Unity project, and you can attach to Unity Editor or attach to Unity Editor and switch into play mode as well. Once we've selected one of those, we can just hit debug, and that will attach the editor, attach the debugger directly to the editor. And if I jump over here, and in fact, let's set a breakpoint first. Let's go to the main menu. And if we go to the title screen, no, it's not the title screen, is it? It's the level select menu there. We can set a breakpoint, or we've already got one set. And then if I start playing this, of course, Unity will just quickly compile again after I've made some more changes. And we've started the app running, the game running. And as soon as I hit the level select menu, we're in the debugger. And we get to see the expected features that we've got there. We've got a call stack here. There's external code filtered out. If I undo the filter there, we can see all of our Unity engine code there. And in fact, I can actually double click that, and we'll decompile the code and allow you to debug even inside the Unity code. Let's go back to my code there. A couple of useful things that the debugger gives you is to give you some of the context that you need when you're working with a game. So we show you the active scene straight away there. And if we open that there, we've got the active scene. You can see the name of it, the path to the file, but also you can see these game objects. So the debugger adds the game objects to the active scene there. And we can step into that. If we have a look at the canvas there, we can see what components the canvas has got attached to it. And we can also see then the child game objects that you've got there. And you can kind of keep going here as well and look at all the different components and child game objects. So you've effectively got a debugger view of the same hierarchy that's being shown in the editor. Except, of course, you can't work with the Unity editor right now because you're stuck at a breakpoint. We also show you the current game object, and if you open that out, again, you get the components and the children objects there as well. But right, let's just carry on with that. If we select a level there and we start a wave playing, let's just clear the log file for a second. Now, as the agents start coming in, we can see now we've got various messages. Let's just uncollapse those coming through on the debug log. If you're in the editor, that information is also useful to you while you're editing. And so we've got a Unity tab window here, which if I open that, it shows you all of the different log messages that are going on there as well. So we've got the log messages that are coming through right now, and we've got our call stack there, and we can click anything there. So I could click change health, and that's going to open the change health method in the editor. Same with take damage or attack home base there. And in fact, I can click on the class names as well as the actual line numbers that are going on there. Excuse me. Now, let's just quickly show something else with the debugger. Let's hide that window back. If we come back here and restart, we've got a couple of really nice features with debugging. If I right-click on the debugger there, I can set up a condition such as current index equals 3. That means when the fourth item comes along, when the fourth sort of agent comes in to try and attack, then the breakpoint will be hit. So I don't want this breakpoint to hit every time one of my agents comes at me, but I want when the fourth one comes in. So if we just wait a second as these items come through, then there we are. The breakpoint has been hit. So these conditional breakpoints, by right-clicking and setting in a condition here, is a great way of letting your game run and then debugging at a certain point. But one of the problems now is that I can't do anything with the editor here. So if I wanted to inspect what's going on as a game, as this particular case, if I've got a bug with the fourth agent for some reason, I can't inspect it because the debugger is stopped at the breakpoint. And if I just continue that, then I'm no longer stopped and I've missed my chance. We've got a great way of working with that with Rider. If you right-click on your breakpoint again, down here we've got what we call a Unity pause point. And if I just click that, the icon has changed here. And if we just restart let me just restart. If I just restart the wave there, and if we see the items come through, we're going to wait for our fourth item. And when that one starts, then we see now that the game switches into pause mode. So the breakpoint with our condition has now not suspended the execution of the code. It has told the Unity editor to go into pause mode. And now I can work with my level as you'd expect. I can sort of navigate around, select items, and work with things. So let's say I select my enemy there and make it float. And if I come out of pause mode, then we should see it floating, but I think we might be at the wrong angle for that. But we can edit items and we can work with items. We can change things, inspect stuff that's going on there, and then just come out of pause mode and carry on working. The final thing that I'd like to show then is unit testing as well. So unit testing games is a very interesting topic, and Rider supports this. It'll look for anything in your code, anything in your project which is using the NUnit test framework there. I've got some tests here. I think it's from the collections package, but Rider has picked those up. And if we go to the top of the file, there we can see the class. We can just click on this green button here to run all, or indeed I can just run one method here. And if I do run all there, then Rider will go and connect to the editor and run. Oh, wait a minute, I need to come out of play mode. That should be it. Let's put that back to what it is. Run all of those. there. And now the interesting thing about testing with Unity is that you need to be running these tests inside the Unity process. What Rider does is it connects to the Unity process. Oh, with the debugger, let's just stop the debugger and go back to my tests. And so Rider will connect to the Unity editor. It'll run the tests and it will report all those things within within Rider. And when you can see, then we've got all green tests here. But if there are any test failures, we'll have a stack trace. I can click that. I can navigate around, and I can work with the results of my tests in the code base that I'm using, which is a great way of working. So I think that is a very quick overview of what Rider can offer. It's got a lot of great features and functionality for working with your scripts. We show you your Unity project as a Unity project. You get to see assets and packages and everything. We've got lots of Unity-specific inspections. We will try and show you best practices before you switch over to the editor. We'll try and save you time from switching to the editor, finding an error, coming back, changing it, switching to the editor. And we index all of your assets as well. We know where your code is being used inside the assets. And we can show you the serialized data right in the editor. We can do find usages. We can rename event handlers and have that updated in the scene. And we've got great support for debugging as well. We'll give you great context for working with your debugger items and allow you to navigate around and find lots of things to use there. So I hope this has shown you some very useful features of Rider. Again, the most important things that I would say are the two keyboard shortcuts, Shift to go off and search anything, and I can very quickly navigate around. And then Alt-Enter to try and make quick fixes and changes, and to use that as entry points to navigate, refactor, and generate code. Thank you all for watching, and please download Rider and try it out with your projects today.
네, 여러분, 맷님의 라이더 세션 잘 보셨나요? 앞서 말씀드린 대로 Q&A 시작 전에 첫 번째 퀴즈를 먼저 공개하겠습니다. 유튜브 채팅창에 선착순으로 이제 답변을 남겨주신 분에게 이게 약 20만 원 상당의 라이더 1년 사용권을 제공드리고 있으니까요. 집중해 주시기 바랍니다. 그러면 바로 첫 번째 퀴즈 나갑니다. 유니티 엔진은 어떤 기업의 컨퍼런스에서 처음 발표되었을까요? 애플, 나, 마이크로소프트, 다, 아마존, 페이스북. 정답을 아시는 분은 빠르게 채팅창으로 답변을 남겨주시기 바랍니다. 답변이 올라오고 있나요? 답변이 올라오는 중에 맷님에게 한번 질문을 던져보도록 하겠습니다. Matt, we opened our first question. Do you know the answer of it?
I think I do, yes. We've been through this before, and I think I know what the answer is. And looking at the replies there, I think quite a few people.
Yeah. Already there's an answer. Wow, very fast. It's not easy, but we have an answer. Who's the winner? Who's the winner? 네, 정답자는 채팅창에 이제 정답자를 저희 운영진이 태그해가지고 회신드릴 예정이오니까 유튜브 채팅창을 유념해서 좀 봐주시기 바라고요. 아쉽게도 혹시 못 주신 분들은 Q&A 시간 끝나고 또 마지막 질문 하나 더 남아 있으니까 끝까지 기회 잡으실 수 있기를 바랍니다. Yeah, already they have the winner. The winner will be announced through the chat window. Anyway, so 답변을 좀 공개하겠습니다. 그 가번에 애플 행사가 이제 첫 번째 발표되었다고 합니다. So the answer is Apple. Did you know?
I did know that one, and I did get that one right. So this is good. I'm doing well so far.
조금 설명을 드리자면 이제 2005년에 애플 월드와이드 디벨로퍼 컨퍼런스에서 처음에 이제 공개했던 이름은 이제 유니티라고 하진 않고요. 과거에 이제 맥 OS X 게임 엔진 이렇게 해서 공개가 되었다고 하네요. 그러면 Q&A 한번 본격적으로 시작해 보도록 하겠습니다. Shall we move on to the Q&A?
Sure
Thank
thing.
you.
Yes, I hope we've got some interesting questions.
Yeah. 사전에 이제 등록 시에도 저희가 질문을 많이 받았었습니다. 그래서 사전 등록 시에 보내주신 질문부터 하나씩 보도록 하겠습니다. 첫 번째 질문은 게임 개발 시 다른 소프트웨어 대비 JetBrains만의 장점은 무엇인가요? 이런 질문이 있습니다. So Matt, the first question we have from the pre-registration stage is that is what are the advantages of JetBrains IDEs compared to other game development tools? Is the question. So, what's the competitive advantage?
That's a very, very good question. Yeah. So I think the big answer really is that Rider is designed to be a single IDE for all game development needs. So we have bundle support for Unity and Unreal and C++, and there's also a plugin for Godot as well. So we've been making innovative solutions to support game engines with specific inspections based on Unity's best practices, and we can even highlight when you call expensive Unity APIs from update methods.
네, 간단하게 좀 번역 드리자면은 이제 라이더는 유니티와 언리얼 엔진을 번들로 이제 지원하면서 또 몇 가지 이제 고도 엔진이라고 다른 이제 게임 엔진도 플러그인 형태로 또 제공하면서 이렇게 단일 ID에서 있지만 이제 다른 엔진으로 이제 계속 창을 번갈아 가면서 열 필요가 없다는 게 가장 큰 장점인 것 같다고 했습니다. Do you want to add more to that?
Yeah, please. The other key feature is that it's not just about your code. We also index your game's assets. So we can show you where your code is being used inside Unity assets or Unreal blueprints. And you can even show the values of serialized fields in the editor, which is really useful. It tries to stop you having to swap from the IDE to the game editor and back to the IDE to see if there are problems. We'll bring warnings into the editor sort of as you type.
네, 이제 그냥 일반적인 그 연동성뿐만 아니라 이제 에셋들 있잖아요. 그 자산들 인덱싱을 자동으로 하기 때문에 더욱더 강력한 이제 인덱싱 기능들이 제공된다고 합니다. 그로 인해서 또 마찬가지로 다른 툴로 자꾸 번갈아 가면서 왔다 갔다 하는 시간들을 최대한 절약하는 데 이 차이점이 가장 크다고 볼 수 있고요. 유니티 에셋 또는 이제 언리얼에서도 이제 블루프린트라는 이제 에셋들을 바로바로 인덱싱 해 준다고 합니다. Any more to add?
Just to say that we have lots of innovative ideas and there's always more to come.
네. 뭐 이뿐만 아니라 더 많은 아이디어를 가지고 있고 더 개발이 진행되고 있다고 하니까 사용하다 보면 또 이런 것까지 생겼어. 저런 것까지 생겼어." 이렇게 느끼실 수 있을 거예요. 그래서 많은 이제 사용을 해 보시고 그런 새로운 것들도 가장 빠르게 이제 얻어 가시면 좋을 것 같습니다. Okay. Shall we move on to the next question? Okay. 다음 질문은 이제 "한국어 언어 팩은 언제 지원되나요?" 이런 질문들이 있었습니다. 아직 UI는 이제 그 영어로만 지금 제공되다 보니까 이런 질문이 있는 것 같은데요. 맷에게 한번 물어보겠습니다. Matt, do you know when will Rider Korean language pack will be released?
Yeah, sure. We're hoping to release localization in the next big release, Rider 2023.1. It will be available through a plugin. Hopefully, we'll make this available during the early access previews as well. So pretty soon.
네, 그 라이더 그 현지화 버전, 한국어 버전은 2023.1 버전에서 플러그인 형태로 같이 출시하는 거를 계획을 하고 있다고 합니다. 2023.1이면은 얼마 안 남았는데요. 지금으로부터 한 2-3개월 정도로 생각됩니다. 그리고 이 현재 로컬라이즈 기능들 역시 얼리 액세스 기간에도 먼저 이제 확인해 볼 수 있고, 먼저 사용해 보면서 피드백들을 또 주시면은 또 개선해 나가는 작업들을 JetBrains와 함께 하고 있으니까요. 많은 관심 부탁드리겠습니다. Okay, I think that's enough answer for the question. Shall we move to the next question? Next question is 라이더의 다음 릴리즈는 어떤 업데이트가 있을까요? 이 질문인데요. 한번 매색에 물어보도록 하겠습니다. Moving to next question, what are the plans for the next release of Rider? So, any roadmap that you have in mind?
Yeah, sure. So we have more features coming. We're going to add support for accurately recognizing serialized fields that are used in classes other than monobehavior and in subclasses of serialized fields. So serialized fields that are used in other places, we're going to recognize those. We're working on adding support for DOTS, the data-oriented tech stack, and we'll talk more about that during the previews. We also want to add support for debugging Android devices via USB and improving some of the asset indexing, especially with prefab modifications.
네, 좀 간단하게 말씀드리자면 모노 비헤이비어 외의 클래스와 이제 시리얼라이즈드 필드 하위 클래스에서 사용되는 시리얼라이즈드 필드가 정확하게 좀 더 정확하게 인식될 수 있도록 개선하는 작업들을 많이 하고 있다고 하고요. 그다음에 데이터 오리엔티드 테크 스택이라고 DOTS, 즉 데이터 지향 기술 스택에 대한 어떤 지원을 추가하기 위해서 열심히 개발을 하고 있다고 하네요. 또 이 부분은 얼리 액세스 때도 이제 확인할 수 있으니까 여기서 저희가 베타 버전처럼 이제 미리 공개하는 얼리 액세스 또 활용 많이 해주시고 피드백 많이 주시면 도움이 될 수 있다고 하셨습니다. 또 이제 USB를 통한 안드로이드 장치 디버깅 지원이랑 프리팹 수정을 위한 에셋 인덱싱 개선도 이제 계획 중이라고 하니까요. 많은 관심 부탁드리겠습니다. 다음 질문은 next question. 유니티 검사에 대한 목록은 어디서 찾아볼 수 있나요? 라고 했는데요. 유니티 인스펙션 말씀하시는 것 같은데 Matt, next question is where can I find the list of Unity inspections?
Okay, so this might work if I show you a demo. So let me just bring my screen on. There we go. So one thing which Rider is really useful for is if you have an inspection such as this one here, you can do Alt-Enter, go to the inspection menu, and you can do why is Rider suggesting this? And that will open over here. Let me bring that over here. That will open a web page with description of what's going on. And it's on GitHub. And if you click the wiki button at the top, you can then get a list of all the items, all the inspections that Rider supports specifically for Unity. So it will explain what's going on and how you can fix it.
네. 지금 이제 바로 화면을 띄워서 보여주셨는데, 데모에서 이제 보실 수 있듯이 Alt Enter를 이용해서 인스펙션 서브 메뉴를 열어가지고, 아까 Why is Rider suggesting this를 선택하셨는데요. 라이더가 이거를 제안하는 이유가 무엇입니까? 이런 내용인데, 그걸 클릭하시면은, GitHub 페이지로 이렇게 가고, GitHub 페이지에서 이제 해결 방법이나 이런 것들을 확인할 수 있고, 또 위키 쪽으로 가면은, 라이더가 유니티에 대해 지원하는 어떤 인스펙션 목록들이 다 이제 표시된다고 합니다. 이런 것들을 참고하시면은 개발하시다가 어떤 문제가 있을 때 좀 더 상세히 알아보고 싶을 때 더 활용하실 수 있을 것 같습니다.
Can I also just say, look, we've got a dark theme as well. So I know people are
네.
asking about the dark theme. There's also a new UI. We're working on a new UI with some to make it nice and clean and fresh. You've got all your buttons and tool windows that you expect, but it's looking nice.
네, 잠깐 우리 채팅창에도 뭐 다크 모드가 좋겠다, 뭐 라이트 모드가 좋겠다 얘기가 나왔었는데 다크 테마는 언제든지 킬 수가 있고요. 다크 테마는 사실은 퀵 스위처 이런 게 있어요. 그래서 빠르게 이제 라이트 다크로 왔다 갔다 할 수 있는데 예, 이렇게 되고 또 새로운 UI가 좀 개선이 돼 가지고 이런 것들도 켰다 껐다 할 수 있는데요. 새로운 UI는 아직 좀 베타이지만 되게 인기는 많아요. 라이더 사용하시는 분들 중에 새로운 UI로 바로 빨리 넘어오신 분들도 많기 때문에 한번 사용해 보시면은 좋을 것 같습니다. 여기서 we have yet more question coming up from the chat. 챗으로 또 질문을 해주시는 분이 있으신데요. 클래스 종속성 트리 지원은 언제 하나요? So next question is for you, Matt. When does the class dependency tree support start?
Class dependency. I think we already have that in the I think we already have that. So let me just check something here. So if I go to find a tile, that we can use the Alt Enter menu to do navigate to, and from here you can see base symbols and derived symbols. And here you can see then the classes that derive from and implement this interface. But we can also use this type hierarchy item here as well. So just pause there. Shall I?
네, 이미 있는 기능 말씀하시는 것 같아서 바로 화면에서 보여주셨는데요. Alt Enter 아까 누르시고 드라이브 심볼 클릭하고 뭐 타입 하이라키를 바로 이렇게 확인하실 수 있다고 해서 질문하신 게 이제 종속성 트리, 그러니까 디펜던시들도 좀 빠르게 확인하실 수 있는 걸로 확인이 됩니다. 이 질문에 대한 답변이 맞는지는 정확히 모르겠는데 혹시 다이어그램 기능이요? 클래스 종속성 다이어그램. So the question is talking about the diagram. About
the
the
diagram.
dependency
Okay.
diagram.
Right. Okay. So just to finish off, then the type hierarchy here shows us the classes and lists the classes, and you can navigate around here. I don't think we have support for the diagrams just yet. Nope. Let's try that one again. No, so we don't have the support for the diagrams, and unfortunately, I don't know the when that's going to be coming along.
아쉽지만 다이어그램 지원은 아직은 없고 언제 이게 포함이 될 수 있을지도 지금 당장 답변 드리긴 좀 어려운 것 같은데 혹시나 저희가 어차피 이 모든 Q&A들을 좀 정리해가지고 블로그에 포스팅 다시 할 예정이거든요. 그때 좀 더 많은 정보가 있으면은 블로그에 올려드리도록 하겠습니다. 이것으로 일단은 Q&A는 여기까지 마무리하겠고요. 저희가 Q&A 마무리되면 또 뭐 한다고 했죠? 마지막 퀴즈가 남아 있습니다. So after we'll just wrap up the quiz, Q&A here and move on to the last quiz. 네, 다음 퀴즈를 그러면 바로 공개하겠습니다. 네, NES 닌텐도 엔터테인먼트 시스템은 1983년 일본에서 첫 공개가 되었는데 당시의 명칭은 무엇이었을까요? 가 질문입니다. 가번이 이제 제넥스, 나번이 페미콘, 다번이 슈퍼비전, 라번이 비디오팩입니다. 혹시 답변을 아시는 분은 빠르게 유튜브 채팅창에 남겨주셔야 되고요. 채팅창에 남겨주시게 되면은 저희 운영진이 정답자를 태그해가지고 회신 드릴 예정이고 필요한 정보를 얻어서 1년짜리 라이센스를 드리도록 하겠습니다. 말씀드리는 과정에서 벌써 답변을 달아주신 분이 나왔다고 하는데요. Matt, did you already know the answer for this one also?
Yes, I know this one. I'm old enough to know this one. I remember
Are you
1983.
sure? 1983? Are you sure?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't.
매트님이 1983년도에 일어난 일을 다 알고 있다고 하시네요. What was that?
I was
You
going to say I didn't have one of these, but I know friends who did.
네, 답변을 공개하겠습니다. 이미 채팅창에 공개가 되었기 때문에 답변은 페미콘이고요. 페미콘이라고 이제 불렸는데 이게 두 가지 단어의 약자라고 하네요. 패밀리와 컴퓨터라고 해서 이렇게 So did you know the origin of the word Famicom? It was from family and computer. Family computer.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
네, 이렇게 답변은 마무리되었고 1년 라이센스는 이제 우승자분들에게 이제 운영진 분들이 확인해서 전달드릴 예정입니다. 라이더 관련 소식은 추가적으로 보고 싶으신 분들은 jetbrains 홈페이지 ko-kr/rider로 들어가시면은 라이더 랜딩 페이지가 나오고 랜딩 페이지에도 상당히 많은 정보들이 있어요. 그래서 라이더 제품에 대해서 하나씩 다 살펴보실 수 있고요. 저희 블로그도 운영을 하고 있습니다. 영어 블로그는 blog.jetbrains.com/net 그리고 한국어 블로그는 언제든지 /ko 들어오시면 되고요. 트위터도 많이 팔로우 부탁드립니다. jetbrains 라이더 트위터가 영어로 진행되고 있고요. jetbrains KR 블로그는 한국어로 공개되고 있습니다. 현재 보고 계시는 유튜브도 많이 구독과 좋아요 부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼 여기까지 저희 참석해 주셔서 대단히 감사하고요. 여기서 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. Matt, do you have any last final words for the audience?
Well, thank you for having me. I hope you found something useful, and please download Rider and give it a go today.
네, 오늘 세션에서 뭐라도 좀 유용한 정보들 많이 얻어가셨으면 좋겠고 라이더 꼭 한번 테스트 해보시고 피드백 많이 부탁드리겠습니다. Okay, we'll wrap up here. Thank you for your efforts.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, everyone.
감사합니다.